So I was talking to a girlfriend of mine the other day who was telling me about an argument that she had just had with her partner. She was feeling frustrated in the relationship because they weren't spending as much time together as she wanted to. He didn't seem to be making as much time for her as he used to, and she was feeling upset about this. And so she brought it up to him and said, we're not spending as much quality time together. I don't feel like I'm as much of a priority to you as I used to be. I don't feel like you make as much time for me as you used to, and I'm upset about it. Now, she told me that she was hoping that he would take full responsibility and he would say, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to rearrange some things in my schedule and in my life, and I am going to work around you, and we are going to spend more time together, and I'm going to do all the work to make that happen. Not surprisingly, that is not how the conversation went. He started coming back to her with acknowledging the things that she had become more busy with and wasn't making as much time for him. And then they both recognized that they both had very demanding work schedules, and their kids had lots of activities and lots of things going on. And in the midst of it all, there wasn't very much time left for them to spend together. And so there didn't seem to be this really clear or easy solution. There wasn't something that could just magically happen to make it so that they could solve this problem. And so she started to get even more frustrated because they couldn't come to a solution, because they didn't have an easy answer to this. And because there wasn't sort of that close in the loop to end the conversation and have the answer and then be able to move on, her brain started doubling down on all these other little things in the relationship that were bothering her. And she started thinking about the times that he hadn't done this when she had expected him to, or he hadn't said this when she was hoping he would, or he hadn't taken care of this particular thing in the way that she wanted him to, even though she hadn't actually said anything about it. And her brain started doubling down on these feelings of frustration by coming up with all kinds of other examples of these little things that he wasn't doing in the relationship to meet her wants, her expectations, or maybe even some of her needs. And then she told me she noticed herself getting really upset, and she was about to go off and start saying a bunch of other things and criticizing him for a bunch of other things. But then she took a moment, she told me, and she paused, and she went inside and she noticed that she was feeling really worked up. And she had enough emotional intelligence in that moment to recognize that if I say something based on these really charged emotions, is it going to be an accurate portrayal of the relationship? If I come at him and start blaming him for a bunch of things, making overarching statements that come usually in the form of like, you always or you never, is it going to be helpful or harmful to this relationship? And she said, what was going on there? I don't know what I was feeling. I don't know what was happening, but I did have this moment of pause because I noticed myself getting really worked up, and I couldn't tell in that moment if I was really that upset about those things, or is my brain just in this really heightened state of emotion and trying to figure out a way to dispel this emotion, to get this emotion out. But then is that going to be a helpful way to get this emotion out by saying all these other things and blaming him for all these other things and using those always and never statements? And she's like, I'm so glad in that moment I took that moment to pause. But what was going on there? What was my brain doing? Why was I getting so upset in that moment? So what I said to her is, in that moment, you were experiencing this psychological phenomenon called confirmation bias. And what this is when we are feeling a certain way, our brain likes to be efficient and come up with all kinds of other examples from 2 days ago or 20 years ago about other situations where you felt this way to confirm the feeling that you are having now, almost to justify it even more, because our brains sometimes like to be really lazy and not look for nuance, not look for exceptions to the thought or feeling that we are having. So in that moment, your brain was thinking about all the things that your partner had done or said, intentionally or not, that you had been slightly irritated by, a little bit put off by, or mildly disappointed disappointed by in however long, the past 2 days, the past 2 years, in order to confirm what you were feeling in that moment, so you could just really feel solid in that feeling. But the thing is, your brain was only looking for the examples of how he had disappointed or hurt you or let you down. But it was forgetting about all the times that he had been there for you, that he had shown up for you, that he had even done things that he knew were important to you without you even having to ask. And so, luckily, because she's been doing her own inner work for long enough, her brain was able to catch that in that moment. Her brain kind of knew, I am having this big feeling in this moment, but I don't know if I fully trust the intensity of this emotion. And so I'm not going to do anything about it right now, because the truth is, when we let our brains get us really worked up about something, and then we let that out, or we shut down, or we ghost, or we run away, we do one of these things that are typically our tendencies as humans to deal with big, uncomfortable emotions that often aren't good for our relationships. We fight, we flight, or we freeze. It often has a longer term negative impact on our relationships that is not always so easy to fully fix. And so if she had gone off in that moment, if her dispelling of that emotion, of her getting angry and really worked up and saying a bunch of things in that moment from that emotion to him, she likely would have said some things that would have been really hurtful to him that weren't entirely true. They were just kind of a representation of the intensity of the emotion in that moment. And that would have impacted him in probably a pretty negative way. And yes, she could have gone back and apologized and said, you know what, I was really upset. I said some things that I didn't mean. I'm really sorry. And yes, that is important. Do not get me wrong. It is really important to acknowledge and repair after a transgression has been made, after we've hurt someone. But the goal, even before that, is to not be hurting the people that we love. Because yes, we can apologize. Yes, we can do our best to repair. But sometimes there's still things that can't be fully undone, words that can't be taken back, impressions that can't be erased. And so she had the wherewithal in that moment to be checking in with herself and asking herself, should I say something right now, or should I wait and just see how I'm feeling in a little bit? Because what I said to her is, you couldn't fully trust that what you were feeling in that moment was an accurate portrayal of what was really going on. You had gotten yourself really worked up. And so you needed a minute. Your brain knew that you needed a minute to really just take stock of what was happening, what was going on, and then wait to calm down, wait to settle down, and then wait to tune in to see, what am I actually feeling? Are there any specific issues that I haven't brought up that I need to bring up, things that we do need to talk about and work through from that conversation, those feelings that were coming up, and which are things that are just like, you know what? It's okay. It actually wasn't that big of a deal, and I see what my brain was doing in that moment. So this is the work. Understanding that when we are in the middle of a big feeling, our brain is not always going to be presenting us with thoughts that are facts, or at least not thoughts that are the full facts. Because like I said, in that moment, her brain was coming up with these examples of little things that he had done or not done that she found irritating or a little disappointing or a little upsetting. But it wasn't looking for the nuance. It wasn't looking for at the rest of the picture, at the times that he had been there for her, that he had been thoughtful towards her, that he had gone out of his way for her, that he had been showing up as a really great partner. Because as we talked about, our brains can be lazy, where they don't like to look for the nuance. They don't like to look for the full picture. Because in that moment, all our brains want to do is confirm, the feelings that we are having so we feel justified in our feelings, but it doesn't actually help us. It usually just makes us more upset, more worked up, and then we say things or we act in ways to offset the emotional distress that we're having. We try to get it out in some way or try to repress it in some way or try to push it away or some way or run away in some way, which then often ends up creating hurt or even harm to our relationships. So taking a moment in those moments and asking yourself, what is happening right now? What is my brain doing right now? Is this that confirmation bias? And if it is, do I want to just take a moment and reflect before I do or say anything? Do I need to take a minute to center myself, ground myself, calm myself down before anything else comes out of my mouth? If you want some help with this, that calming of yourself in that moment, some really powerful little thoughts that you can practice bringing into your brain in those moments, it's going to help you find the ground underneath your feet pretty quickly again so that you're not doing or saying things that you regret or that are not actually helpful in those situations. Then get my 25 power thoughts. The link for those is in the description below, and those are going to help you find the ground underneath your feet again and calm down in all kinds of different situations and scenarios where you notice yourself getting really worked up about something that's going on the inside or something that's going on the outside. And I have a little secret. That friend of mine who was having that argument with her partner, she was me. I was her. That was what happened with me and my partner that other night. And that moment where I recognized these emotions that were coming up and these thoughts that were going through my head and how worked up I was getting, but decided instead of saying something, I would take a moment and say nothing. That moment of deciding to say nothing was everything. It stopped me from saying things in that height of the emotion that I know I would have regretted. I know wouldn't have been good for the relationship. What's that saying? One moment to breathe in one moment of anger saves 1,000 moments of regret. Grab those 25 power thoughts and let me know what connected with you here. Until next time, take good care of yourselves. Take good care of those around you. Bye for now.